Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Troy. Do you ever wonder why some of the people that you love and care about seem to repeat the same things over and over and over again? I don't mean words. I don't mean sentences. I don't mean stories that they tell you, though they may do that. I mean that they tend to get mad the same exact way all the time. They tend to be depressed the same exact way all the time. They tend to feel guilty and shameful and do all these weird things the same every day. They just don't seem to pull themselves out of it. They don't seem to change. They don't seem to do anything different. And ultimately, there is a reason why. And part of it, we've repeated this on other podcasts, but it bears repeating here too. We don't make the same mistakes twice. We tend to make them 50 or 100 or 1,000 times. That's just the way we work. So what do? Why do we keep repeating things? Well, part of it is the brain is trying to maintain continuity, some form of control. At least the crap that it's been through, it understands well enough, and it doesn't mind if it continues to happen. At least it knows it can handle it. And sometimes we can handle a lot of crap. But what do? Our mind, or rather the brain, has constant fantasies of what the future will be like. And if we are not monitoring those things, we're going to find that they look an awful lot like the past. And so, because we put our thoughts on those lower aspects, we just continually repeat and get the same things. And it is, again, comforting in its continuity to not question this at all. Now, if you want to go somewhere different, you're going to want to actually start questioning this. But in order to question it, you're going to want to start seeing it. See it clearly. And then all of a sudden, some answers will start coming to you. And sometimes those answers will look in the way of, that is absolute trash I've been thinking about. I think I'm going to choose to think a different way, or about other things, and not things that really don't belong even anywhere near my mind. Now let's say that you find yourself in a pretty bad place that seems pretty stuck. What do? Well, the first thing is to watch. Now, the mind will try to label what you're going through. Don't let it. Now, it's really easy for me to say don't let it, but when you've done it 1,000 times, 10,000 times, 100,000 times, it isn't all that easy. It is simple, but it isn't easy. It can be easy, though, and we call that awareness. Do you want something other than what you've been getting? To begin to make that decision is enormous, and it will be one of the best decisions you ever have made. But let's say that you've been doing this a long time and you're saying to yourself and to me, it sounds real good, Troy, but it doesn't work. I'm still watching myself go through all this. While that is a possibility, can you seek to this time not try to change it, but be completely okay with whatever you go through? Now, that may not seem like a whole lot of fun for your brain to say yes to, but if we're going to get out of this situation, we're not really interested in salvaging the body. We're interested in salvaging the mind, the watcher, the one that is the awareness of all the thoughts the brain is thinking. The brain becomes very difficult to see beyond when we've allowed it to come to the forefront and make every decision for us out of fear. And when we can only see the thoughts of the brain and don't realize we're the ones actually watching it and deciding to go along with it, then it seems like we are the thoughts in our brain. But the moment that you step back for just a moment and look clearly as you can, and try your darndest to catch a thought coming into the mind, the brain, and then look at the thought directly and not get sucked up into the tide of what it wants you to think or believe or do or act like. But instead, I'll give you an example. I tend to talk to other drivers. Nice turn signal. That was a great braking mechanism even when we didn't have to brake. And I've realized that I have this modicum of irritation. And so I began to ask the question, why? Why do you do that? Now, there's this sense of wanting to be a little bit superior. I could recognize that. But as I let that go, it still continued to happen. So somewhere in the back of my mind, I dealt with this idea that I was garbage or trash and inferior, so I chose this means to feel superior. But once I dealt with that, it didn't stop. So then I wrote on it a little bit differently. And all of a sudden, the still small voice in our mind that is the Holy Spirit, that is our voice, said, "Troy, why don't you ask what it costs you?" Oh, okay. And so I began writing, well, it costs me tires to stop when they break, when they shouldn't. It costs me gas. It slows me down, so it costs me time. It costs me, it seems to cost me that other people will think ill of me when I'm late. I was writing all these things down, and then all of a sudden it hit me. You're poor. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness. I'm instantly 5 years old asking my mother for Trax shoes in Kmart for $1.99, and she says we don't have the money for those. We might have, but she just wanted to not buy them for me, probably, and told me that, and I believed it. And therefore now that belief sinks in, and now it comes out in these weird ways. This is the kind of stuff that the brain tries to keep continuity with the limiting beliefs that we keep in our own mind or our own brain. And so if you want a future unlike the past, you are going to want to do a lot of watching and questioning the hell out of your brain. And when you do that, you're going to find that in the beginning, there may be a lot of other things that come up. I had a client, case in point, I started writing, and all of these things that I felt guilty for all of a sudden started coming up to me. And I said, just write them down on a separate piece of paper. We'll work on those later. But for now, when you complete what you've done here, tear it up and throw that damn piece of paper away. And then when you feel comfortable, go to the next one. The first time I started working on my head, and all of a sudden 5 or 6 memories that I hadn't thought about in forever came up full force upon me. I wrote them down quickly because I realized that they tend to go hidden again. And I worked on each one of those events carefully and got rid of those. And by that time I was hooked because I saw things changing. I no longer did things in my life. I realized that I could let go much easier. Anger was a thing of the past. I could still experience anger if I wanted to, but it no longer interested me. I now realize that I could experience love inside completely without having to blame it on some situation outside of me. I had become love itself, and I realized everyone else was too. Yet they had covered it up with all the fear and lies in their own brain. And so if we want to go somewhere different than what we've got in the past, we're going to have to be courageous and move somewhere brand new now. It's the only place you can make the change. And so as you begin to look at these thoughts as at these ideas that are coming out of the hole under your nose that seem to be coming out of your brain, but that you think you are, you're going to have to look at them directly. and realize that is just an option. It is not the end-all be-all. There are many different things I could choose to think about right now, and that is not one of them that I would care to do anymore. So as you begin this process, you will go through this area, or rather this idea that, well, maybe positive mental attitude is important. And you can experience that for a period of time, but instead I would rather you have a deep awareness, a deep watchfulness, a watchingness that even the Bible talks about. Be ready, have your lamps lit, be ever watchful, because you do not know when the master is coming home. And what that really means is to still your mind and be ready and waiting. Do not allow any doubts to come in. Do not allow any fantasies of a future that you think you should or could want, though that would be a lot better than imagining if they were awful, by the way. So you can experience with doing all kinds of things. You can experiment with doing positive mental attitude. You can experiment with imagining a future way better than what you have now. And you can make that your practice as many moments throughout the day, and you will watch your life change. And if it doesn't, then you've got some deep-seated running programs in your brain that you need to ferret out a little bit. And that's going to probably be the easiest by writing. Few people say, whoa, yay, we get to write about our garbage and our thoughts and feelings and emotions. It's going to be amazing. But I tell you, when you start and you start getting the change, you won't want to quit either. You want to keep elevating and moving forward and upward and onward until you realize that your life is and always has been amazing. It was only your brain's thoughts about it that said it wasn't. And as we let go of most of our thinkingness in the brain, we realize the most beautiful things are happening to us right now, and they're even better if we don't judge them. So, do you want to remain stagnant? Do you want to keep yourself stuck? Or would you like to go somewhere brand spanking new instead of the same old, same old? Well, then I invite you into that beautiful moment right now, the only time that ever exists, and be very present and very aware, and stop traveling to the past in the regrets and the garbage that you have there, or into the future in the possibility or that it will be the same as the past. Begin to let this moment be so total, so beautiful, so all-inclusive, that you watch every moment be the same from here on out, in the most glorious way. Until next time, I'm Dr. Troy, and remember, you have nothing to do, only something to see.